Welcome back, everybody. We've got a fantastic panel lined up for this part of the afternoon. So can I invite them to come on stage now? All of you. So we've got Chris Ashworth from the Nominet Trust, Simon Leeming from Digital Skills Partnership, Rachel Neaman from the Corsham Institute, and Leigh Smyth from Lloyds Banking Group. Okay, so we've got 3 minutes to tell everyone what you do and what you feel proudest of, and maybe what you want from everyone in the room.
Shall I start?
You start.
Just going to go up there and talk now.
I thought I'd get up. Is that all right? March 1985, on page 6 of the Radcliffe Times, there was a black and white picture of a 9-year-old lad with snotty nose and grubby sleeves, or grubby sleeves and snotty nose, can't remember, a duffel coat, gaps in his teeth, looking and holding a box up to the camera. The box was a Tupperware wrapped in cling film. Under the picture, the headline, "School Kid Buries Time Capsule Beneath Classroom." I remember the article for a number of reasons. Firstly, the lad in the photograph was me, and it was my first brush with fame, because I nearly got spotted in the chippy on the Friday night. The second reason is because my mum had a copy of this in a frame in the downstairs loo, which has been there for the last 32 years. Now, that time capsule was full to the brim of curiosities to describe to the people of the future what life was like. So I put in a toothbrush, a mixtape from the Sunday night chart show, and some Girls' World accessories that I'd stolen off my sister. For those of you who don't know what a Girls' World is, then you're too young, and that's your fault. So fast forward to 2017, and here I am, blessed the duffel coat, and dealing with the irony that the digital archive of that article is in better condition than the cling film time capsule itself. And I'm on stage charged with you talking about the digital future. I'm a tad more qualified now, just a tiny bit. I'm here representing Nominet Trust. We're the UK's leading grant-making foundation for tech for good, and we use the power of technology to transform lives. We use advanced technologies, we explore advanced technologies such as blockchain and other things, but we work on the digital skills and inclusion agenda. We're very privileged to be working with the Good Things Foundation on a number of initiatives this year under the Digital Reach programme, which is exploring the importance of trusted relationships with young people who might be at extreme risk of homelessness, transitioning from care, who might have caring duties themselves. The young people share just one characteristic, which is they don't have the full breadth of basic digital skills. And with our partners, we've been teasing out insights from the programme that have led to some future predictions. So a bit like Bruno Brooks's chart show that I taped, here's the top 5 that we've gleaned so far out of that programme. We think we might be approaching a watershed moment where the attitudes, beliefs, motivations of those now without digital skills are markedly different from the people who are now on their digital journey. The second one is that a user-centred approach needs to dominate over the next number of years, one that focuses not just on the fact that someone is digitally excluded, but most importantly, why, and examining the web of underlying issues that have conspired to create digital exclusion. Third, we need to collaborate more with experts in complementary fields. It was really interesting listening to the panel discussion before in terms of the different fields that have built up the evidence about social exclusion. So whether that's mental health or disability, we think in terms of the digital space that will fast track our evolution in terms of addressing the issue in the UK. The fourth is be concerned about a divergence of interest of funding between digital skills with its clear commercial and economic imperative compared with digital exclusion, a social imperative. And finally, again, touching on the point from the panel earlier, a more innovative and personalised routes to supporting an individual will improve their digital disposition, maybe without needing to mention digital at all. So I'm going to quickly finish now, because I think I've probably done my 3 minutes, but I'm going to go back beyond 1985 to 1966, and a quote from Cedric Price, who was the pioneer of user-centred design. I know we all did the workshops this morning. And for me, it's really pertinent to the digital inclusion agenda. And the quote there was, "Technology is the answer, but what is the question?"
Thank you so much, Chris. Simon, are you going to present from the chair? Or?
I do the civil servant thing and be very dry and boring and sit in a chair and just sort of talk about things. So, yeah, the Digital Skills Partnership, I'll just give you a sort of potted history. Probably the short version would be most useful. So around this time last year, we got together with some of our private sector partners, talked to them about some of the great work they were doing for digital skills and inclusion, and asked them about how we could boost that up and get them to be even higher than where they are at the moment. And it was incredibly successful, and our great partners, some of them sat in this room, so Lloyds, BT, I shouldn't have started listing them because I'm going to miss someone out now, Accenture, Barclays, there's others, they're on a list, they're on a website, you can have a look at them. Did a great job and got to more than 4 million pledges of free digital skills training opportunities. So by the time we got round to the digital strategy being launched in March of this year, we realised that's great, we're putting out another 4 million opportunities for people to learn digital skills. But there's already a lot of stuff out there at the moment, and there's the idea that, you know, you've got Good Things Foundation do this fantastic work in the online centres, and there's loads of other organisations who are doing work right across the spectrum, from those who need basic digital skills for inclusion, up through general digital skills for the workforce, and onto those specialist skills we need for future economies. And that's marvellous, but it's a bit of a messy picture at the moment. It's quite fragmented. It's difficult if you're the person on the street to see what the route is from getting those basic digital skills to moving into work in areas and various other things that could take you even up to the top end of that scale of capability. So we set up the Digital Skills Partnership so that it would bring a lot more coherence to that picture and make it easier for users, those end users, the learners, to understand what their opportunities were. But also for those providers too, so that they can see a clear picture of what kind of digital skills training is out there, so that they're not duplicating those things and they're putting better courses out there, getting better interventions out that are useful for those local communities. And then the second part of that is to really activate local digital skills partnerships as well. So we know, again, there is fantastic work going on out in the regions and on the ground everywhere. But what can we do to bring in broader partnerships and all of the active people in those areas to be greater than the sum of their parts as well? So that's the sort of two key things that we're focusing on. And in order to do that, we've been talking to various stakeholders throughout the summer and into the autumn to come up with some initial plans for that. And we had our first Digital Skills Partnership Board 2 weeks ago, which is co-chaired by our Minister Matt Hancock and Phil Smyth of Cisco and the Tech Partnership. And it went really well, and we've agreed that we will start setting up some delivery groups because we acknowledge this is an absolutely enormous challenge. Attempting to do everything at once would be almost impossible, so we've prioritised those two things along with the work that Lloyds are doing through a delivery group that will focus on SMEs and charities and their digital capability. So I told you that was going to be dry and boring, but you're up to speed now, which is the important thing, hopefully.
Excellent. Rachel, tell us a little bit about the Corsham Institute. How many of you are familiar with the Corsham Institute and what it does? Okay, so a number in the room we would appreciate understanding more.
Absolutely. I'm not surprised that most of you don't know much about us, but I'm sure you will do as our work continues to evolve. So Corsham Institute, or CI as we call it, is a research and education charity based in London and Wiltshire. And what we're really looking at is the pace of technological change, the impact of the pace of technological change on society. Our mission statement is to work for a fair, inclusive, prosperous and creative society based on trust and security. And to this audience, I don't need to explain why an inclusive society is important and matters. But I think what is becoming more apparent is that trust and security, which is the end of our mission statement, are becoming much more of a prerequisite now for the digital world that we're living in. So what we're beginning to see is that as a result of some of the unintended consequences of digital technology and the pace of change, people are beginning to lose trust, not only in some of the institutions that they should trust, whether that's political institutions, whether that's large corporations and companies, but they're also beginning to lose some trust in the technology itself. Now, as we all know in this room, tech is the great enabler, and it is the one thing that we should all be encouraging people to use. So if there is this sense that it cannot be trusted, and the people behind the technology cannot be trusted, there's quite a job of work for us to do. So I firmly believe that we need to continue to focus on basic digital skills, on connectivity, on having the affordability and the motivation so that everybody in our digital world can be online. But I think there's also something else that we need to support people with, and that's to get some of those softer skills, if you like, the critical thinking skills, the problem-solving skills, the resilience, the empathy, to be able to continually adapt to the constant change and the pace of that constant change that we're seeing. And that's very much what we're focused on. So we need a greater understanding, not just of the mechanics, not just of the how to do things digitally, but of the implications of doing it as well. So, for example, often the latest Ofcom media attitude survey report that's just come out shows that amongst older children, they're finding it more and more difficult to distinguish whether something they read on social media is true or isn't true. Similarly, a lot of people who know how to use the search engine, one of our 5 basic digital skills, managing information, don't always know the difference between a paid advert and a genuine search result. So this is why the importance of really understanding what it is something we need to be thinking more about. So a lack of that trust risks further isolating either the existing excluded or people who begin to disengage or people who actually choose to opt out because they feel it's safer to opt out. And this isn't a one-off intervention, and it's not what I would call purely digital skills. So this is really life skills. And in our terminology, this is very much about lifelong learning. So that is what we're really focused on, the lifelong learning. And to give you a couple of examples, that's why we're working currently with ex-service people to give them cybersecurity skills, to enable them to get a job when they retransition into civilian life. We're supporting Mums in Technology to help women gain confidence through courses at RADA, to help them then reskill and fill some of the skills gaps and some of the job gaps. We're building digital communities. We're using our town of Corsham in Wiltshire as a test bed, and we've now taken on responsibility for the Digital Leaders Southwest region as well. So we've got a very hyper-local test bed, we've got the region in the Southwest, and we've got the national picture. We're a test bed for we're part of one of the NHS test beds, the Digital Diabetes Coach, which helps individuals to self-help using a digital app. So again, this is about empowerment, and this is about the lifelong learning to enable people to navigate the digital world. I could say a lot more, but I think I had better shut up now, so thank you.
And Leigh, we were chatting before, and you said, oh, you know, this audience is probably very familiar with everything that Lloyds are doing. But the thing is that you do more and more all the time. So I wouldn't necessarily think that is so. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you care most about at the moment.
Okay, so I work at Lloyds Banking Group. So we're the biggest retail bank in the UK, and we've got something like over 13 million online customers, 20 odd million customers in total. We're in most locations. We've got lots of multiple brands, and I used to run a charity. So guess what? My job in that bank is to make sure that we're leveraging every single asset of that bank to be able to do what's right for our communities and to help Britain prosper. And that's our overall mission as a bank. And I'm really proud that I work there because they've been really, really great at being able to get behind this agenda. So what we've been able to do with some great backing from the senior management team and great colleagues is, first of all, to have some fantastic partnerships, whether it be with Rachel, government, you guys, hopefully Teen Tech soon, is to really work in partnership, because our kind of number one principle is not to replicate or duplicate. And so being able to kind of work in partnership is key to us. And I'm really proud that probably one of our most successful partnerships, down to Helen and the team and you guys, is with the Good Things Foundation. So I think something like we've been able to Adam will probably correct me, but something like 50,000 people have been trained by you guys with support from either our volunteers or some seed funding to be able to make that happen. So I'm really, really proud of that. So thank you very much, and well done to everybody in this room for enabling that to happen and showing how big corporates can really help in the community. The second thing we've done is really recruit colleagues to be able to help all those partners. So mostly face-to-face, and I run about 150 events across the UK just as in our own organisation every year to recruit our own colleagues to be able to want to help. And we've now got 25,500 colleagues with their names, addresses, where they live, who they've helped. And those people are really key to this. And so, that's been a great... I'm very proud of all those people that have been able to help. And, partners, we do webinars quite regularly. So for Internet Day, I think that's due to be the next one that we get behind. I think last time we had a call, we had about 800 of our colleagues dial on just to kind of see how they can help. So lots of those campaigns really help our colleagues to feel activated. The other thing that we do is use data for good. So having so many customers and such a big database. I think we've got the second biggest database outside the NHS. We really believe in leveraging our data. So we run something with partners called a digital index, and we've got the consumer one and the SME one. And that's been really helpful, I think, to start changing some ideas around what are the benefits case for this, from a benefits case of the individual and the SME. Which is fascinating. I was only just reading last week with the budget announcements around the loss of productivity for UK, and actually then being able to compare the benefits case to be able to see how we can help that. So as one of the, I think we're second to lowest now as one of the G7 countries for GDP per hour. And actually, if you can save 20% of your working week, or whether that be to spend time with family or to be more productive, that's got to be a game changer. And we know that from 2,000 businesses that we speak to every year, not online, but over the telephone, so that we know that those are representative of our UK base. And I guess the other thing that we've been doing recently is thinking about our online customers as well, as more and more people migrate to digital. So 1 in 3 of our customers could be considered vulnerable at any point in time, either through poor mental health or through any other issues, disability, etc. And so a very proud partnership I'm really pleased about as well is the AbilityNet partnership. I don't know if any of them are in here today, but we're the first UK FTSE, never mind a bank, to get all of our digital assets accredited for accessibility. So seeing those customers now being able to kind of talk to us about the improvements in the journey that they've had right across our estate, whether it be on mobile or desktop, I think I'm really pleased about. We've got something like 2.5 million customers with a disability alone. So, that's been incredible. But yes, we've been up to quite a lot, and the journey continues. And the stuff that we're doing with SMEs and Google as well is really key. And I have got some big ideas for next year that I want to talk to some people around, or everybody in here actually, but watch this space, because I think there's plenty more we can be doing. There's 11.5 million people and 1.5 businesses. Without those digital skills, we can definitely continue and get much better at it. So we don't ever stop. Thank you.
Excellent. So you've got some insight into the stall of each of our panellists. If you've got any questions, can you just make sure that I can see, and you really wave so that we get a mic over to you. Yep, you can kick us off. Where is that? Oh, there it is. You're the expert at this. Watch out, she's a good... Yeah, no, you throw well. Look at that.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, I'm Helen. I'm here from Citizens Online. Such a great panel that we have here today, and I've got 2 questions really. One is touching on points that you all made about that tension between the higher level digital skills to drive the economy that we know we all need. However, everybody in this room is much more concerned with the basic level, and I'm just really conscious of how are we going to keep that high on the agenda, and also how are we going to keep that funded to keep those initiatives coming through, the work that we're doing in this room. My other point was noticing on the digital skills partnership, the omission of anyone from the health service. There's lots of government departments included there, including education, and business, communities and local government, but there isn't anybody there from health. And something that we've touched on today is the links between those that are socially excluded and the effects that has on their mental health and their quality of life overall. And there's such a big focus, I think, on trying to bring digital transformation into the NHS. So I wondered what your thoughts were on that and if there's any plans to change that going forward.
Do you want to pick up first on that question around funding and around the likely level of support at an area, for most of these people in this room working with people who need basic digital skills?
Yeah, it's a hunch that we've been trying to figure out and talk to all the partners about, that there is this divergence, and I think it hasn't happened yet, but I think it's one of those things that over the next 5 years we've got to be hyper conscious about, and we've got to start kind of raising the flag about, which is digital skills has got that commercial imperative. So you will see an attraction. What's interesting about the digital skills and inclusion space is it's actually a really new social issue. So it's 15 years old, let's say, or something like that. And the kind of first charge of support from kind of all forms of society has been the big tech firms, people who are the kind of progressive organisations who've spotted it and seen it. And so it's not followed the normal route of a social issue in terms of where it first starts in terms of funding. I think that alongside that, then you look at the gulf that's open. I thought the bridge picture in the last session was really interesting, because I think there is now a gulf between the haves and have-nots that we need to be really conscious about. So it's a concern and it's a hunch that funding follows, not necessarily saying self-interest, but will follow a pattern, and that the traditional forms of philanthropy, where there is large money, so high net worth individuals and major donors, trusts and foundations, and then institutional money, needs to keep focused on or be awoken to the digital inclusion agenda, because I think there's going to be a separation. It's not, I've got no statistics behind it, I've got no proof of this happening over time, but looking at other social issues and how they go over time, that's an area for concern. So I think our job is to not let that separation continue and maybe bake in that both sides of the coin need to be addressed and not let one charge away while the other one gets left behind.
And Rachel, I mean, the focus of your organisation is on making sure that that digital drives a fairer and more inclusive society. So is this one of the areas that you're going to be keeping an eye on?
Well, I think I totally agree that there tends to be, I think we do too much compartmentalising of digital skills from very basic right through to very advanced. And actually, I think this is more about what are the aptitudes and competences that everybody needs to have to be able then to learn these things. So this is my point about we're kind of slightly moving away from the mechanics to a much greater understanding of what it is in the digital world that we are accessing. We have to, the baseline for that is that everybody does have to have basic digital skills, because otherwise they can't participate at all. So that remains the absolute benchmark. And I think it is still very disappointing that we don't have universal basic digital skills, we don't have universal access to connectivity, and we don't have universal affordability of these devices. The three hygiene factors, which for me are something government could fix, the motivation and the other bits around it, slightly more complex, but the hygiene factors could be fixed with will. And until they are, it's going to be extremely difficult for us to function as a genuine digital economy. And we will continue to have this perhaps distraction of, we need money down here for basic skills, or actually is it more important to give money up here for rocket scientists? Actually, we need both. So I think it's a slightly artificial, and I think perhaps it's a slightly too easy distinction for funders to create. I think, Simon, you'll obviously talk about the Digital Skills Partnership. But I think we need to move on the debate about what we mean by digital skills, simply because when we created the Digital Skills Framework at Go On UK several years ago, that was then. The world has moved on so fast that we really need to be thinking more about what that really means today, and more importantly, what it's going to mean tomorrow. So here's something for all of you to think about. How do we evolve that and move that on?
And Simon, I mean, are you going to be sort of applying a bit of pressure on those hygiene points that have just been mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's a constant thing that we're always talking about having those access points as well. So obviously organisations here do a great job of doing that, but it should be something that it's much easier for everyone to get their hands on, never mind just getting the skills. The skills is a huge part of it, and motivation is still a huge issue. But yes, that pressure continues to be applied, or it continues to be talked about a lot. And there's always that tension around where government money gets spent and what the priorities should be. I think coming back to the point about digital skills partnership and health, for example, the board itself is not the whole digital skills partnership, and it is very much a starting point for that. So there are some departments around the table, there are charities around the table, so we have Good Things Foundation there, Ability Net that Leigh talked about before as well. And it's not that that's going to be a rigid thing where we don't bring in other partners as well, and particularly focusing on those delivery groups that I was talking about, that's where the real action is going to take place. So we're very, very inclusive as to who gets involved in that, certainly. And on the point about, are we losing sight of the inclusion side of things? No, we're not. And the Council for Digital Inclusion that existed before has been merged into the Digital Skills Partnership Board as well. So we absolutely can't lose sight of the fact, as Rachel says, even if we're thinking about skills in different ways now and understanding and adaptability and things, it's absolutely vital that people have those basic skills to even participate in the first place. So absolutely not losing sight of that. But I think it is a kind of new sort of holistic approach, if you like, to think about all those levels of capability and what that can bring in terms of outcomes. So we're very much focused on the outcomes here. We developed the Digital Inclusion Outcomes Framework that started looking at things that way and thinking about, this isn't just about sort of teaching someone a skill and then sending them off home. It's about what happens as a result of that. And some of the ways that we measure things as well may need to change too. So while we have frameworks for things like basic digital skills, and I think we've talked about innovation here a bit today, but we're not making the right use of data at the moment. It's a really powerful thing. And we want our local digital skills partnerships to really focus on finding out what the actual needs are within local communities and economies. So not just sort of pushing out training and saying, hey, here's some training for you, let's hope someone takes it up, but really targeting that provision as well. So yes, I think we're absolutely not losing sight of the fact that we need to do stuff across the board. It's hugely ambitious and it's a big challenge to meet, but I think we are at a point where there's quite a lot of momentum at the moment. I would say, I'm bound to say this, I'm from government, but I think with whatever political stripe you are, I think we have a minister who actually understands this and is starting to get it, is beyond starting to get it, I should say. But there's also just this wealth of partners that are coming behind it as well. So we've seen that just as a start with those 4 million pledges, but it's going to go on from there. I think there is definitely a lot more momentum than there has been in the past, and we want that to continue.
Got to comment on that, and then we'll come to you for your next question. So
I was going to say,
if we can get the mic up there in readiness for that question, that would be helpful.
I was just going to say 3 things. First of all, the productivity gains are from basic digital skills as well. So your report with CEDA a couple of years ago, and you guys at Go On UK showed that for every £1 invested, £10 back. So that's massive. And the biggest gap is the 11.5 million without the basics still. So if we think about this as what Rachel was saying in terms of not just the skill but the people. So if we focus on the people and maybe the mindset, not just the skill set, I think that will really help us and thinking about what skills they need and what locations they're in. So taking that holistic view, how can we make it more seamless between them getting the basic digital skills to the workplace skills to more advanced skills, or actually just thinking about people in terms of what skills they need to live their lives, I think is quite important. So that's all I was going to say.
I work with a range of young adults and children with learning disabilities of kind of varying degrees, right from PMLD through to people that are on apprenticeships. And one of the things that often comes up when I work with these young people is the idea of and the theme of digital representation. So they don't feel digitally represented in kind of mass media, and it's not really something I feel has been touched on that much today, actually, from that demographic. And I was just wondering if any of you had any thoughts on that and kind of what we can do to improve that.
Shall I go? I think there's more people with skills than without still. So actually, I think the role of the digital champion or digital friend or digital legal or whatever the initiative is really important there. And maybe we need to think of those organisations that have got those kind of digital champions about making sure that they cater for all needs. So I'm really interested in picking up with you offline about how we could be more supportive of that personally. Yeah.
Dr. Throws.
Oh, God. I'll pass it.
I was going to say, no, we work with independent living, and I come from working with MLD right through to PMLD, which is moderate learning disability to prolific learning disability young people. And I then went into the transition of what they used to have was an awful great representation with digital skills when they were in school, but when they moved into the adult services, they completely dropped off the radar. So we are now trying to help fill that gap. Obviously, we're a very, very small service in a big pond, and but we do have a Lloyds champion. I just wanted to let you know that you have got one, and we have had a team from Lloyds actually work specifically with that, targeting it.
Oh, there you go.
So there are some out there which are especially like it. So grab her and tell her that they can
I think
do
that's
it.
really helpful because we haven't given them
Yeah.
tools to do that, so
No,
it'd be really
and
helpful.
I had to train them, and I did kind of, on their first day, two of them actually went home crying because they were so emotionally overcome with how much these people actually took on board and how much the difference they noticed because they didn't see the disability at first. And then it came through. They could finally see those disabilities coming through and the differences. So it really does have such a massive impact, especially when you're trying to work with people like that digitally.
We've got about 50 different tools that we've worked with Adam and the team on that sit on our database for all our digital champions. So it looks like if we could work with you to just refine one of those toolkits and then
I do have our Lloyds digital champion
Oh, there you go.
representing us today. So
Excellent.
I thought, I'm just thinking we could all link in because
Cool. Excellent.
I'm taking the opportunity. I'm saving you lot a couple of minutes.
So glad I came. Thanks very much. Good question.
Did you want to just come in on that quickly and then?
Yeah, and just very, very quickly on that, I think this goes back to, again, being very targeted about who needs what in the digital space. And I think, where we're talking about young people with special needs in particular, there are safeguarding issues. There's a whole lot of stuff that the Children's Commissioner is looking at, and we're working, we've been doing some work with them as well to help them start to think through this area. So it's, it is a highly complex area, and it's equally complex for adults with special needs. But I think this goes back to the point that just a kind of one size fits all, this is what the skills are, this is what you need, this is how to deliver them, is not going to work. And I think in terms of kind of role models and people understanding the needs more widely, that's a broader conversation than something that we can deal with in this room. But I think you're absolutely right, there isn't enough visibility of the diversity of need and how those needs can be supported through technology. And I think the more that everybody can do on that, the better.
Thanks,
I'd love to have a conversation with you about it as well. I know that we've just got a new head of digital inclusion and diversity, so they'd definitely be interested in having a chat too.
And one of the main points, because sadly I am under pain of death to stop this panel now and move on, otherwise we won't ever get to the drinks. But because you've seen...
We're very much second best to the drinks.
Well, priorities. But the point is that you now know the faces, and so you can connect with people and pick up and have some quality conversations. So please do that later on. And now put your hands together for a great panel, which could have gone on much longer.